Yeah, so these guys took my worst confession of the day from me already. Like, yeah, I'm from the dark side, from the business side. Everybody hates it. Anyway, it's my life. What am I supposed to do? And coming from that side, I always look at that angle which happily you bridged over to, like, we build software for a purpose. You know, we don't just do it. Yes, it's fun. It was fun to me until 30 years ago. And actually, this conference is kind of closing a circle for me. So my master's thesis was actually about AI at the time. So it was a little bit of a lame project. We did stuff like Siri at the time. So it was about dialogue sequences that you could talk into the computer, and then you came up with dialogue acts. And one of the things we wanted to get done was like, hey, not Siri, but the thing at the time, please arrange a date with this guy over there for me around next Easter. And the issue, of course, and that was beginning of the 90s, was like, what is next Easter? Like, these were the problems we were dealing with at the time. And we could integrate the software twice a year, and there was a guy in the European Commission who spent millions on us, and he was totally proud to basically point at the file and say, like, this is what the guys are doing. But we were totally unconfident about what we were doing because it was just not technically successful. And comparison data sets and all that stuff, so it was awkward at the time. So anyways, at this time, a couple of dumb students like me sat in a room and invented the first German search engine way before Google. That was around 1994, 1995, something like that. And we did it in Chinese because the Chinese student said, like, there's no search engine for Chinese documents out there. So we built it, and after only half a year, we had the idea to build it in German would be a good idea as well. And it was. So basically, we grew as a company from 0 to 200 employees in, I don't know, a year or something, but we were dumb students. We didn't know what we were doing. So this was my start and foray into all these technologies, which are all basically linear algebra and a little bit on top. And but then as we grew, we needed some people to think about the customers, the clients who were using the software. And it was not nerdy anymore that much, but we needed to take care of the business. That's how I arrived at my vocation, which you, Sebastian, mentioned. So I look at organizations all of the time. I'm a consultant. I help them to deal now mainly with how do we transition the business, the whole organization, into this AI thing. And the first step was always the wow moment, like what's happening, what does it mean for us? How do we get people to adopt the technology? All the people who hate it in the beginning or who are amazed and can't touch it for the first time. So I'm looking at what organizations are going through at the moment in that transition. And that's the last about me. Like, I've seen 4 revolutions in my time. And I was always hyperactive in it, like internet, I just talked about, like, what is that thing? We don't know about it. Always open-ended, and always you only learn when you're dealing with it. You just lean into it. You don't count on ROI in the beginning. You just do the stuff to see what's possible in the beginning. Then Agile came along. And Agile was also the thing, like the time arrow was always forward. Like, it was always like, leave this old stuff behind, do something new. And it's always provocative, it's always polarizing, always I get feedback like, the stuff you're doing is just not possible. And it always was possible. Then came mobile, now it's AI, and when always I get this feedback, sometimes really aggressive feedback on that this is not possible, that I'm dreaming or anything, it was always a good time in my life, actually. First of all, it was fun. Second, there was always a transformation in the society and technology which leads us forward. That's happening right now, again. So I'm giving courses to product managers on how to use Claude Code, for example. And that's a total abuse of the technology, of course. Like, these machines are not that good in creating text, but they're really good in understanding and extracting signal from noise. And in all the business stuff I'm doing, there's a lot of noise. So, the human exceptionalism leads to a lot of discussions we wouldn't need, and it's only about a lot of noise. So when people like me sit in a room for 4 weeks, fine-tuning the strategy for another wording, if you send it into the machines, it just doesn't matter. And also on the workflow, it doesn't matter. The signal stays the same that arrives at the people. Anyway, so I give these courses on how to abuse the technology for business purposes, for setting up company operating systems, helping middle management to find out what the next strategy friction is, what the next meeting should be about, and all these things, only augmenting, not replacing them. And here's what the participants said in week number 2 of a course. So, came from nothing, no education. This is not about my course, this is about the technology. It's like a drug. If they ever take it away from us, we'll all be standing here looking really stupid. And I, on that weekend, felt like an expert, and I knew I wasn't one. This person had no clue of software development, and she ended up with an app, you know, whatever it was, I don't know that much. But these are the emotions that are triggered in people right now, which don't, like, I have some background in engineering. This person didn't ever. But that's what's happening to people, right? It is the epitome of democratization of a technology, basically. Enabling. And also, like, the world is talking about this thing that Simon Willison, Steve Jagger, Boris Cherny, what they're doing is like opening up these 9, 10, 12 terminals, feeding them with short bursts of input, and what they say is at 11 a.m., although I already had a walk with my dog at the beach, I'm done. I'm burned out at 11 o'clock. It's too intense. It's basically TikTok for developers, doom scrolling through terminals and terminals. So there's obviously some side effects going on with that. And these side effects lead to a stream on LinkedIn, for example, which I have, which is about this, like AI kills creativity. We all suffer from brain rot. We will not be able to think anymore. And you know, you might remember stuff like, I, for example, could remember all of the phone numbers of all of my friends before mobile phones were around. Now I can't even remember the number of my son. And that's kind of what people are seeing. The technology is only for greenfield. You can't use it for my business. It's too serious. You can't use it for B2B, whatever. Actually, all the tales by all the Boris Chernys and Willisons, that's all fake. It doesn't work. And that's so funny because, like, I'm also always divided a little bit. And like, is what I do, all the quality I'm doing with AI, all the quality code I see generated, is it actually true? And when I come to a conference like this, like yesterday evening, I shared the table with a person who totally turned around the business, totally trusts the code generation given by AI, and he's totally dead certain that this is the way to go, and it is. But there's people out there which are like, none of this works. So the future is so unevenly distributed right now as it was never before. It's insane. It's like two totally separate bubbles. One bubble is totally storming ahead, and the other one is like, this doesn't exist. I don't even judge. I just observe that this is what's going on. And I think as technologists, we were always on this forward-looking time era, and now there's a divide. It's like one huge part of the tech industry is like, this shouldn't happen. And there's societal, political, economical, ecological reasons why this shouldn't happen, probably. But you know, it's here. So what can we do? And here's a little thought experiment. Take these. What these guys are doing is doing the impossible. That's only for greenfield, playground, as I just said. That's not working for multiple developers in a complex system. Your site will be down a lot. Sounds great for your business, not for mine. Mission-critical customers will never accept this. Not here. And now comes the fun part. So, of course, quality will collapse. None of these statements were according to AI or reacting to AI. It was all on continuous deployment. These are all original quotes from the time, what was it, 10, 12 years ago or something. The same criticism that comes up now came up at the time, and I was still working at eBay at the time. We were totally like, this can't be true. Like what we had releases. One of them was called Tsunami, and then he became a tsunami. Like we had quarterly releases, and how it worked was like we had a whole QA department which kind of sensed the field and said like, yes, this release feels stable now. And then we pushed the button and then the tsunami came and stuff happened, whatever. And then we all kind of reserved time from home because we knew that after a release, it's going to be horrible. We need to be in place if stuff happens, if we have a P0 incident or whatever, we just needed to stay in place. And then, like I, among others at eBay, fought for, we need to do this stuff. It's a dream come true. It's killing a bottleneck we all suffer from, but we couldn't imagine how to do it. And then we totally put the whole thing on its head and said, like, we do know how to do bug fixes in no time. So if we treat every release like a bug fix, that could help. It was naive, of course. It was more like more stuff was involved, but that was the model that drove us. And in the end, at that Christmas, the all hands, I sat in the back of the room, and while I was heavily argued with the whole year, the question was like, what was the best thing we did this year? And what they said is like, the CI/CD thing, insane, great, fantastic. I'm like, fucking hell. Like, and now the same thing is happening again, and like mobile, the same, this is too fast, it's only for images, like all these phases we go through with all these technologies, there's always this anger in the beginning because like, we need to change how we work, processes need to change, reviews need to change and all that. In the end, it's always a big sigh of relief that a damn bottleneck is gone. When a bottleneck is gone in your organization, it's always great. Because if you're responsible for the bottleneck, you're the guy suffering. It's gone. Yeah, we mastered that, obviously. So nobody today would argue about CI/CD pipelines. And was it work? It was a lot of work. Like we needed to understand a ton of things. And a lot of companies got it wrong. Like they got the button to push the release out there. The quality was gone. Like there is some engineering and infrastructure work in the background going on to keep up the level of quality with that. Like it's not taken for free. It's the same thing now with AI. You need to lean in, engage with technology, learn how to do it, find the right guardrails and all that stuff. It is work, but people are showing you it can be done. It was already done. Yeah, on some of that stuff out there, all the memes, like I actually did the work so that you don't have to do it and look up the research. So there's this myth out there that there's going to be brain rot, we forget how to think and all that stuff, which I just said about like my phone numbers. And this one study that is often cited actually proved the opposite. Not the opposite, but there's no proof that brain rot is existing out there because people use AI. It's a bit like... yeah, what happened is that there's a paper out there which says they did 1 out of 4 experiments which proved some kind of brain rot. The experiment was, whatever you're doing, start with an AI, start with a prompt, let's produce something, and then let's see if a minute later you remember what the outcome was. And what they realized, the number of people really remembering deeply what happened after that first initial prompting without a lot of thinking was, they can't remember that much what they did. Surprise. The 4th experiment was totally different. Like, it reversed the sequence. They didn't give you a task. They're like, think about a task, start the task, then start using AI. No brain rot detected, ever. So the experiment totally changes the outcome. Basically, how the researchers reacted to all the memes existing out there is like, no, it's not true. We did not ever detect reliably brain rot. It's not true. Same for the creativity thing. Like there's all these memes out there that creativity is killed by AI and all that. Same there. No research exists proving that. There's dump experiments from a couple of years ago with initial AIs where 300 people were given the same prompt. And take this prompt, work with it, just one prompt, let's see what the outcome is. And what they realized is if you give 300 people the same prompt, the outcome is not that different over 300 people. Oh, great, big surprise. Like, if you give me any input, the same input as you, the outcome will be very similar. Later on, when they went into deeper research on how does AI work with creativity, first of all, they went into the right experiment where they said, like, creativity is always a system. It's never a hero that has that great eureka moment. It's what they realize is, yes, the entry hurdle is lower for creativity, so you are more prone to do creative work, but the ceiling isn't going lower. So the outcome of creativity is not reduced by AI. It's just another signal. So that is interesting that none of that research on all these negative effects exists. I don't even doubt that we have negative outcomes as well. All technology has that. But the research that is cited is just plain wrong. And what I'm observing is, and this is what I hinted at before, is that for the first time, I think, in technology, we have this, for a long time, this separation into two bubbles. One bubble, which to me seems like very defensive and turning around the arrow of time to looking backwards and acting as if we should be protected from something, which from the political, societal, economical, and so on discussions, and based on the fact that actually the whole technology started with a huge theft of intellectual property, I get it, why you want to protect against it. But the technology is here, and I think the best way to do it is to lean in to learn what it does. And if we think about economy, even if all the open AIs and topics will die, the technology is here. So it's better to deal with the technology even if the big companies are gone. And what you see from the feedback out there is that the bubble that is trying to resist, in the best sense, you don't see a lot of competent criticism and feedback on what's going on with AI. What you see is, as I normally describe it, you see a couple of people who use ChatGPT in the chat mode 5 times a day and prompt a little, and basically go to the doctor and say, like, I already have the diagnosis, and compare their results to what you can do with context engineering, a really good pipeline of the right context at the right time into the small, tiny sub-agents, which then create a process which do amazing things. And they cannot judge the outcome that is produced on the right side by the people leaning in. And that is creating the bubbles, which is interesting, at least for technology. We had a long discussion about this yesterday evening. And over the years, I want to understand what's going on right now, because I've never seen that. Yes, for a year. Yes, for half a year or something. But then normally interest arises, but now it's kind of hardening and the bubbles are polarizing somehow. So that's interesting. Anyways, all of you are here because you're leaning in, so that's your work day, and you seem to be interested in that, and you're on the right side, so the right side is probably also the right side, given the technology. And here's my, why do I think we should engage? I'm getting to the point that where even by abusing the technology for all the strategy work I'm doing, just to give you an example, I simulate strategy workshops that I will do with my clients before I do it on my laptop. And I'm sitting there, and basically the machines are talking to me and like, oh, this person is now seeing that, and that person is discovering that friction, and there's no clarity over here. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm seeing this. Hopefully they will detect that. And yes, lo and behold, the agents will go into that direction as well and say like, there's a big gaping hole in that strategy over here. And the outcome is fantastic, proper strategy documents where I struggle to get the same clarity from humans in a room. And the reason is clear, like, and it's not a judgment. People are sitting in a room to align. There's a lot of social friction with best intent. Roles need to be clarified. Politics need to be dealt with, all fine. But the amount of time we actually cover the functional discussion we should have for strategy is minimal compared to what the agents do. So the agents, if they discuss with me for 1.5 hours, they are way further ahead. all I want to say is the results, if you let these agent farms basically run around the strategy problem, the quality is insane. And work like this is not that often documented because all the people are, of course, into engineering for good reasons. But what I really want to say is quality of AI artifacts is not the problem anymore, not at all. The problem, for example, with my documents is how can I explain to anyone the sense-making behind it? Really complex strategy, really complex product documents. What is the segment? Why is it the segment? Where's the proof in all the statements we have from the clients collected over the last 8 years in the database and all that stuff? Like, that is hard to explain because it is so good. People just don't believe the quality. And my work is basically translating that hard factual document into human approachable sense-making so that you, for example, could accept that this hard fact is actually applicable to your company. Because it's also often very, very harsh results in there. Like, for example, experiments I'm doing are like, I take a strategy document from the CEO, I take the reactions from middle management, and I take basic random Slack messages and compare what's going on in the intent of the company, how they're executing what's working on the ground floor. And of course, the gap is normally insanely huge. If you present the results of these runs to the company, they're just like, that can't be us, but it is them. And me knowing them for 5 years, I'm like, I couldn't write the report better knowing them for 5 years than this shitty thing did it in 20 minutes. It's insane what these things can do. And again, that quality can only be witnessed if you have seen the process. If you sit next to me and see the agents running, doing that stuff, you're like, yeah, sure, that's a valid result. If you don't see the process, it's like, And that is a huge difference between software engineering, where you have all the tests running, it's green, it's fine, could work, and strategy documents and more abstract stuff like this, where it's like, we never worked on correctness of a PRD, of a strategy document, of whatever. And probably it's not that far possible as it is in software engineering, but that is a huge gap, which leads to less adoption of AI in that field. Anyways, here a little report from the field. Client of mine last November, I think it was the 6th of November, all hands meeting closely before Christmas. And he was like, yeah, the AI thing, really great and all, and every engineering job will be affected, but the rest of the company, don't bother about it. Then, big U-turn. A week later, he wrote an email to all the employees like, the new models are out there. I take everything back. I saw the quality of the new models. Every job will be affected. I hope you're on with me on the journey. And then reactions in companies after the watershed moment where, COOs, CEOs, CIOs, they start to think about, do we need actually a person leading the AI transformation, all of that. What they observed was exactly the split I was talking about before. 50% of your developers don't care. 20% totally lean in, 20 actually are defensive. You even see those numbers at Google, funny enough. So Google is totally mediocre regarding AI adoption internally. Same split, 2020 and something in the middle. And the defense is like, I'm not doing that stuff. I'm sticking to manufacture. My code will not be touched by these animals. And so let's look a little bit in what conceptually happens when code is free. And I'm specifically talking about code being free, not software engineering, because there's more to software engineering than just producing the code. And basically what it means is that the bottleneck moved, and you all experience that. Probably the bottleneck you see most of the time is the PR bottleneck, like how do we review all that stuff? What is a PR anyway, and all that. But here's also, first of all, the speed of moving. So when you look at Boris Cherny, I don't know, that might be 3-4 months ago, he said, like, coding is solved. I don't code anymore. 100% of my code is produced, generated. A couple of weeks later, he said, like, yeah, you know what? Actually, I'm so confident I don't review my code anymore. Like, that's kind of a step change. I don't give a shit. Like, it's going to be fine. And it looks a little bit like a miracle. Like, what is he doing? Like, is he just, totally YOLO, hands in the air? He doesn't give a fuck about what Claude Code does to me, like, tomorrow. And sometimes it looked like it, honestly, but there seems to be more behind it. And then, like, in the last couple of weeks, he's like, who the hell is still prompting their fucking agents, I write loops. Are you still prompting? Like, that's basically... And the fun part behind it is, like, there is a lot of friggin' technology behind all of this. It's not myth. It's an infrastructure engineering feat behind it. He always was like the daredevil of automation when he was working at Meta, and you listen to him, how he created automated spreadsheet actions that already pulled automatically bug reports from whatever systems into the Excel because he didn't have another tool. And then he pulled from the Excel some things which were automated but not agents at the time. He's just now in the right window of technology where it's like, oh my God, and I have kind of a little pet boy on my side who's doing all that stuff for me. Like, this is decades of thinking about automation, which is paying off. And probably it's what we all need to do over time and need to learn. Like, how is the guy doing it? And basically, it's all infrastructure. So what's happening to a company? 4,000 lines of code are produced not in a weekend, not in a week, or whatever. It's produced in 5 minutes, 20 minutes, and then have fun. You're assigned the PR. What are you going to do? Like, surrender, take a break, go on vacation? I don't know. And basically, that's because building stopped being the hard part. The irony behind all of this, and now this might be a little bit insulting if you produce the code. Benedict Evans, a couple of weeks ago, said, like, the industry is now that this is getting in that bubble a little bit routine, what we realize is producing code was never the hardest task in a software company. And the thought experience I'm having is like, if I talk to any of you, like, when a crazy person in your company comes to you and says, like, I have the following idea, and this is a feature, and it should go to the client, how long does it take from that first conversation of an idea to getting the idea to client and finally also billing the client, getting any money, any value, anywhere in that chain? And the normal answer I get is something between 3 months and 12 months from idea to value at the customer. Now, how long did a person code in those 3 to 12 months? Probably a week. So what's happening in all the other time? What are we doing? Well, sales, marketing, lead times with customers, all that stuff, waiting times, because it can't be done in one team, all of this. Like, I need that team, but they're in a sprint already, so I can only talk to them in 2 weeks, and then this and that. Yes, it's just a week of coding, but the week takes actually 4 weeks. All that stuff is happening. So that's how difficult actually coding is. And why I'm saying it is because I want to explain to you how huge the impact of coding is free is, but how little it is on the other hand, funny enough. And there's a lot of talk about, we don't know what the future will be like, and we don't know how roles, that's all bullshit. Like, that was 2020. We know a lot of what's going to happen. The rest is just myth. And why do we know it? Because we have stuff like theory of constraints. We have good predictability of where the bottlenecks moved, where they will move, and all that stuff. And that's basically where we are a little bit. We have the inner loop, like, get the shit done, and have the code produced and anything, and that's kind of bordering to the outer loop when we do CI, and then comes CD, and then CD actually takes care of that getting shipped to the customer, and then something, and basically most of the time we're just talking about this. When I talk about the 6 or 12 or whatever months, I'm talking about the outer cycle of the whole thing, which is, I'm done, I'm lost. How long does it take that the market will actually adopt my feature? And that takes weeks to years, and you only have lagging indicators. And you said before, the purpose is to do the right thing the right way. what is the right thing? And the signal, if it was the right thing, is hidden in here. We cannot know it. It's unknowable until it hits the market. It's, the old Muhammad Ali thing, you have a strategy until the opponent hits your face and all that. And that has funny consequences if you think it from that way. Why the inner circle was solved so easily now, even with AI, why it's so easy in comparison to kind of speed up in the inner circle and outer circle is because software engineering has worked on tests and assertions since 60 years. Linters, type checkers, compilers, all that stuff, in even architectural checks and all that stuff. A lot of how and why we can trust code is because we have all these checks. You have an agent producing code, you have an agent checking the code all of the time. That's how you get from level 2 to level 3 as a developer. You trust the thing doing the right thing because you see it 100 times doing the right thing. And the actual problem with trusting the code that's generated is actually seeing it 100 times working. Otherwise, you cannot create that psychological trust in it. Behind that is all the engineering work, all the infrastructure work on having these tests running. If you don't have the tests running, probably you will burn your hands on the stove one of those days. So that's why the inner circle is kind of okay. Yeah, I want to skip that. That's boring. That's the difference between vibe coding and real coding. It's also merging a little, so I don't want to talk about this. So trust is actually the task in that inner circle. So that basically also means code is free, software is not, because there's also a lot of stuff going on with are the machines that good with architecture decisions right now, automations, or I don't know. A lot of people I meet are not that convinced about that level. As I say, we know more things, and people who really know a lot of things about working with shifting bottlenecks is the car industry, Toyota, and they have a concept that's called Heijunka. And what it does is when, also in car production, in any production, always bottlenecks are moving. And what you need to do is you don't stress every step with 100%, you know that. If every step of coding is always stressed by 100%, you minimize output. It's basically a traffic jam. It's good old flow theory behind that. I'm losing it again. So the whole imperative is smooth the flow, don't maximize it. No, it's fine, it's fine. So don't keep every station 100% busy, level the flow. And we know how to do it. It's basically if a bottleneck is too constrained, you will create a traffic jam, which means, and how you can visualize, if the Autobahn already is stuffed, you shouldn't use the Autobahn if you're in a hurry. You should take a bypass. Actually, in the southern parts of Germany, in southern and Austria, they're blocking you from going off the Autobahn right now because you would also block all the other ways. So you need to level the flow. And for that, you could create something. That's why if you keep stressing the thing, the more work you have in the system, the longer it takes to do the thing. So the normal instinct we have as humans is oh my God, I'm in a rush, I push more stuff into it. If you see a company that's really calm, the manager's instinct is push more things into it because people are calm. More must be done. People are not, I don't know, have no sense of urgency or anything. The opposite is true. A calm organization reaches more throughput because there's no traffic jams. That's why you always have utilization at roughly 80%. That's kind of an ideal system state. And that's what we need to do now. If the PRs are clogging your system, don't push more into the PRs. It doesn't help. It doesn't help to create more stuff that just is blocking even more PRs in your company. Have kind of a traffic light system which says PRs are full, we don't need to create more software. It doesn't help. It's just going to block even more. It's going to take everything I'm producing today takes even longer to get to the client. It's a totally hard psychological exercise, but it's sadly, rationally what you need to do. So coming back to what is the organizational bottleneck on the outer loop, We have the problem that we as business people never worked on correctness. What is a correct PRD, product requirements document? There are aspects we could actually check for correctness and all of that. But we slept on it for 20 years. While you were all, building your linters and checkers and whatever, and all the agentic loops now, which check for correctness and all that, we didn't do shit. We're basically, and what we're saying now, I'm a product manager. My community now is like, oh, now that AI is coming, the last frontier of defense for us is judgment and taste. And also some software developers say, like, what the hell is judgment and taste? What is it? That's coming from people like me who for 10, 15 years, if a boss came to me and said like, Markus, I don't like your research. I'd like your product to have this background. I'm like, what the hell? That's opinion. Who needs your opinion? And now we call it judgment taste, and that's like, we were asking for being data-driven, all that. Now that other people and the machines are data-driven, like, oh, judgment, taste. And that's because we never did the work, basically. And why I think it's difficult, like, Sebastian, you come to me with a PID and like, mine is best. And I'm like, no, mine is better. Why? Because my judgment is better and my taste. And I'm like, what? Why your taste? Like, what's the criteria? It's mine. Like, is it Hippo, like highest paid income person dominates and all that again? Like, we've been there 20 years ago. It's bullshit. But we're going there again as product people. Why ever? I don't know. And we are really bad as product people. Like a person, Ron Kohavi, the whole career he devoted and basically proving how bad human intuition is. If you read Nate Silver's books, the guy who predicted the first presidential thing at the time and totally changed his business from sports betting and prediction to politics, because he basically found out that experts don't know stuff. So if you look in experts' predictions, they're always wrong. Like it's like throwing a dice. And experts are not better than non-experts. It's really funny if you look at the statistics. We as product managers, that's our outcome on average. 1 in 3 features that we release have positively tested outcome. Another third has no impact, no measurable impact whatsoever on value creation. A third has negative effect on value created. That sounds like rolling the dice to me. The excuse is intuition and taste. Well, I don't know if that should be the state of the art. And now I wanted to tell you one of the core problems where we see like how big and small the revolution with creating code is at the same time. So when I was working at eBay, and that's how you see how old I was, like eBay was not that hip anymore. The problem we had at the time was that we explained to people for 10 years that auctions are just the best. Forget about everything else. Like we came from a niche and long tail businesses and whatever. And then Amazon came along and said like, why shouldn't you just buy stuff rather than wait for the auction? Surprise, it worked. So we're like, why is that working? Why are people just buying stuff if you can auction it? So the response was, of course, like we also want to sell stuff to people right away. We didn't have the infrastructure. We didn't have the quality of logistics and everything, which, of course, Amazon invested in before. Anyways, it took us 5 years for the customer to understand that buying stuff at eBay, just buying stuff, makes sense. 5 years of explaining it to the customer. And then we had the funny idea that classified ads would also be fine, like a third option and, cool stuff. Another 5 years. My question is, would more software faster have reduced the 5 years? Probably not. What does that mean now? Like, you're a software-driven business like eBay, and creating more software doesn't help in your core problem? What the hell is going on? But that's what it is out there. Like, creating just more software over time isn't the right thing. It's more going into your direction. Doing the right stuff at the right time matters much more. Which is totally value conservative and boring and, not embracing the new technology and all of that. I get it, but there is that outer loop which just, what it says is customers don't absorb change as we, coming from internally, like it. They take time to anchor your new business idea to your name and all that. Anyways, because it sounds so boring, I want to give you kind of a counter thing for you to play on. What I explained before with the loops actually has a chance for us. And if you look closely to what the Chernys and all the guys are doing, is exactly that. They're using the inner loop and they decouple CI from CD. Basically, what they're doing, they're having a system where they're looking at stuff internally, you know that as well, like staging systems, whatever. And what they're doing is, still Boris Cherny, he doesn't care at all about what he gives his machines, as long as it's in his huge frame of reference, which is given to him by Amodei, who says, build the best developed tool you can imagine. And whatever Boris sees around and says like, oh, that could help me building that tool, he just picks it and gives it and shoves it into his agents. And they're doing the work. And then he comes back and he's looking at the thing. It's like, yeah, doesn't look like it helps me. Kill it. So he's basically storming the inner loop like crazy. And I swear to you, out of the 10 terminals he's having open at every time, he's throwing away the results of at least 8 of them. My metaphor is analog versus digital photography, basically. Same thing, technology discussion was like, oh my God, digital photography will kill quality, aesthetics, you know, whatever, and people will be flooded because it's so simple. Yes, like all of you are basically probably doing 200 photos of every vacation. It's insane. What you're not doing is inviting people over for an evening where you show them all of the 200 photos. Hopefully. Some might. The point is curation. Just like 20 years ago, you show all your friends 10 photos, the best ones, because you want to represent. You don't want to be the fool on the hill who shows all these stupid photos of your feet, of, you know, an empty lake, I don't know, like, you wouldn't do it. And now you can do the same because the inner loop is so cheap. You can play around. And it totally turns around the way of thinking. Until now, we were totally overthinking what we put into the production line. Guys like me, product managers, were overthinking and coming up with priorities. Priority 0, then priority 0A, priority 0A1, and so on. Just to think about, like, what's the most precious thing we can give those really scarce resources, the developers we have, because it's so expensive, the whole process. Now we can just about take everything which might make sense because we know my intuition is really terrible. I have no good intuition, obviously, giving the numbers. I can basically tell developers, do all of that stuff, work on 5 features in 10 variants, then we have a look every 20 minutes and say, like, kill it, stop it, go on, more of this, more in this direction, go on. And we postpone the judgment of what we show to the customer to the end, because now we have a better glimpse. It's basically mood boards in life, but better, because we see the concrete outcome. So it turns everything around. Don't overthink the beginning, but overthink in the end what you actually push to the customer, because what's coming after is really, really expensive. It's hard for us to measure outcome from the market, because all the metrics are all over the place. Even A/B tests are a mess. Like, how many impressions do you need to get any statistical relevant results from 20 experiments? It's insane. So that's that point. And what I want to come to is like a totally overlooked point, which is, of course, my work. We need to shift focus to how can AI help us run businesses? Because I want to get out of the intuition, taste, whatever loop. And what I think is that the business is held so tacit and you know, we can't touch it, and is your intuition really better than mine? I think that's just privilege. It's just privileged positions which can allow themselves to kind of work this way. Any developer that comes to management is like, oh, I don't know, 3 weeks, 6 weeks. What the hell are you doing? But business, like, you know, it stops there. Like, I once built a bank account. Didn't take 9 months, took 1.5 years. Nobody said anything. But every developer postponing the thing for a week, like, what the hell is going on? You know, because my work is so tacit, so not touchable, not haptic. And what Reid Hoffman, I don't know, like nobody needs to like him, but what he said is most companies have the AI strategy backwards. They focus all on engineering, but actually AI is really good at business processes, at the glue, at keeping things together, finding signals and noise and all of that. And you know, what companies are doing, of course, is like all the transcripts of all the meetings, find the strategy behind it, undocumented decisions, all that stuff. Like, most of that is really super simple, honestly. That's what I'm doing. But what's blocking the progress of this, you know, it's in the transcripts and so on, is the decision cycles. The calendar is blocking the whole company. You have people deciding in glacial speed, basically. Like, yeah, we treat every 3 months, maybe 6 months, because we need a little turn in that strategy piece, and you know, there's an upcoming question from that direction. Oh, you might discuss off-site, sailing in the evening, cool stuff. And meanwhile, you have a production machine running on steroids, option storming, as I just described, you know, the inner loop on steroids, everything really fast. The thing is, if this production machine is running for 2 weeks based on the wrong information, you're just running havoc, basically, as an organization. And then you wonder what the outcome is. Like, your machines need to know what the strategy is, honestly. Oops. So that's a C-level task. Anyways, here's one example. Developer asks for €20 API access, takes a month for a decision. Well, you know, that's how you can waste money. Waiting for a decision like that for a month. The problem is the agents had no buffer. Like, if I emit and want people to work after my strategy document, there's a human buffer. You might have a discussion with me like, what the hell are you talking about? The machine can't ask me, what the hell are you talking about? But the machines need to understand that stuff. They need to have verbose, direct, machine-readable information about the information and the decisions being made up there. Otherwise, they just go wrong. So what I say is, the company needs to come into radically fast decision cycles. Management needs to meet weekly. You think that's foolish? That's what Apple did since decades. Every Monday, top management meets for an hour to discuss all the important things. Every company I talk to is like, yeah, that's cool, let's do it. Then I want to do it with them, like, oh, not this week. So discipline is not easy, but that's the discipline people need. And then if a decision is taken, somebody needs to transfer it into infrastructure. Strategy MD goes straight into the repo. Repo gets pulled by all the developers. They have it. If they need information on the strategy, it's there. What product am I working on? Who is the customer? What is the purpose of this feature? It all needs to be documented, because that's otherwise what developers need to make up on their own. And then the sea wave of documents which get into the infrastructure is really bad compared to the original. So that's not what we want. So decisions need to be infrastructure, basically. Well, you know, and then when I discuss this on conferences, mostly, even by technologists, the thing is like, oh, but you can't expect these people to use Git. I don't care. You know, Schäuble basically printed his emails and had them printed for him. Fine. If the CEO needs someone to push it into Git, who cares? But you need to have that process somehow. This stuff needs to be infrastructure. And the excuse, oh, Git is so complicated. We mastered worse. We know how to use Jira. That's worse. We know how to use Google Analytics. That's worse than Jira. Git is basically 3 commands. Give me a break. So a company needs to get closer to the infrastructure level or stay slow. I'm fine. Stay slow, but don't complain. And then don't complain about the developers and all the process behind and all that. If you don't come up with the decision speed, leave me alone. I'm fine. What the COOs who are currently hanging over those layoff lists for all the developers and the support guys, whoever they want to lay off, what they don't realize is they're going to be the next bottleneck because they created that glacial company OS. That's not going to help. And they lay off people before they even actually realized the productivity gains in development and support. They don't even know Like, who here knows how to measure developer productivity? Like, it's not easy. They don't have a baseline. It's just a bet. It's a stupid bet to lay people off. So, last couple of minutes, and that's kind of a summary of where are we with the technology, what does it psychologically mean? And philosophically, actually. And it's actually Heidegger all over the place again. So he came up with that word of Geworfenheit, thrownness in English. And what he basically says is, none of us chose that AI will come in the way it came. We were all handed this gift. And if we made money off it, or if we are suffering from it, it's not our merit, positive or negative. It's the thing we are thrown into. Cool. So you didn't choose that you're now in that industry that is totally impacted. Boris Cherny didn't choose that he was hired by Anthropic in a way. It was kind of a fate as well. He was at the right place at the right time, just like I was as a stupid student with my search engine. It was just out there. 100 people around me worked on that. It worked for me. It was not my merit. I was dumb as shit at the time. It's like today's weather. It's really hot. It's going to be 40 degrees on the weekend. You can suffer from it. It's fine. You will not change the weather on the weekend. The question in the concept of thrownness or Geworfenheit is like, these options were never your choice, but the question is, what are you going to do with it? Are you going to cave in? It's like, oh my God, it's terrible. I don't know what's going to happen. Or are you dealing consciously and explicitly with the options you were given? And then the task is, and Kent Beck said that already 3 years ago, and I hope he's more competent on that than me, 90% of my skills reduced their value to 0. 10% though went up 1,000-fold. And that, for all of you, for society, for universities, for schools, for employers, for employees, the task is, what are the 90% of skills that lost the value, which I talk about at breakfast, at lunch with my colleagues, in the evenings, in the beer garden, or wherever, like, you know, coding styles, dependencies of code, where should it be dependent, where not, all that stuff, which defined me for 20 years, which now doesn't matter that much anymore. Like, how do I deal with that, and how do I find the 10% which elevate me above the technology? And I'm like, you know, is it intuition taste? I don't know, but there are some skills which we have. For example, agents don't want anything. As far as I know, my agents start when I start them, and they do what I tell them, and they're totally going wild at the bound. Agents need us. Like, we are steering them, we're at the driver's wheel, and that is what we all need to do now. What are the 10%? Lean on, engage, tinker along. That's how we find out what these 10% are and how we dominate the technology and make the best out of it for society and for all the people. Even if someone hates the technology, that person should lean in totally to learn the technology, to actually be able to conquer it. Everything else is just like emotionally understandable but rationally stupid. And with that, it's a real breakthrough. It's not a transformation with all strings attached, as always. Open outcome, but not that much anymore. And that's the end. And with that, I wish you a happy, great day, more days, a whole week at this conference. And thanks for having me. And thanks for your patience. And I hope it was a good start into your day with a lot of heat.